I spent 6 months thinking I was losing my mind. Projects vanishing into thin air. Meetings I was never told about. My reputation crumbling, piece by piece. But then I discovered the truth. My own coworker had been systematically destroying my career, and she almost got away with it. Before I tell you this story, if you love workplace drama and want to hear more stories like this one, hit the subscribe button and drop a like. And hey, leave a comment telling me if you've ever had a coworker try to sabotage you. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. Now, let me tell you what happened. 3 years ago, I landed what I thought was my dream job as a senior project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. The salary was great, the benefits were solid, and the office had one of those trendy open floor plans with exposed brick walls and a coffee bar that made you feel like you were working at a startup, even though the company had been around for 20 years. I was 31 years old, hungry to prove myself, and ready to climb the corporate ladder. What I didn't know was that someone was already sharpening the saw to cut every rung beneath me. Her name was Miranda Chen, and she sat 3 desks away from me in our open office layout. She'd been with the company for about 4 years when I arrived, working as a project coordinator, 1 level below my position. On my first day, she was the one who showed me around, introduced me to everyone, and even brought me a latte from the coffee bar downstairs. "Welcome to the team," she said with this warm smile that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. "If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, just ask me. I know this place inside and out." I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such a friendly coworker. I had no idea that behind that smile was a person who had applied for my position 3 times and been rejected every single time. The first incident happened about 2 months into my tenure. I had been working on a major pitch for one of our biggest clients, a national restaurant chain looking to rebrand their entire digital presence. I'm talking weeks of work, market research, competitor analysis, creative concepts, budget projections. Everything was saved in a folder on our shared company drive, meticulously organized. The night before the presentation, I stayed late to make final tweaks. I saved everything, backed it up, and went home feeling confident. The next morning, I walked into the conference room, laptop ready, only to discover that my entire presentation folder was empty. Gone. Every single file. Weeks of work had vanished overnight. My heart dropped into my stomach. I could feel the sweat forming on my palms as my boss, David Morrison, stared at me expectantly. The client representatives were already seated at the conference table, coffee cups in hand, waiting. "Just give me 5 minutes," I stammered, frantically checking the recycle bin, searching through backup folders, trying every trick I knew. Nothing. It was like the files had never existed. I had to present from memory, stumbling through concepts I couldn't visualize on screen, apologizing repeatedly for the technical difficulties. We lost the account. $12 million in potential revenue, gone because I looked unprepared and unprofessional. David pulled me aside after the clients left. His face was tight with disappointment. "Marcus, I don't know what happened in there, but that can never happen again. We had high hopes for you." I spent the entire weekend trying to figure out what went wrong. I talked to IT, who said there was no record of system errors or accidental deletions. They suggested I must have saved the files to the wrong location or accidentally deleted them myself. I knew that wasn't true. I was meticulous, but what could I say? I had no proof. Miranda found me at my desk that Monday morning, looking genuinely concerned. "I heard about the presentation," she said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. "That's so terrible. Technology can be so unreliable sometimes. Don't beat yourself up." I thanked her for the support. I really did appreciate it. At the time.
Over the next few months, strange things kept happening. I would miss important meetings that I swore I was never invited to. I'd check my calendar, and there would be no event. But everyone else received the invite, and I'd get passive-aggressive emails from David asking why I wasn't present for critical discussions. "Didn't you get the calendar invite?" my colleague Brian asked me once after I missed a budget review meeting. "Miranda sent it to the whole team last week." I pulled up my email, searched for any mention of the meeting. Nothing. Not in my inbox, not in spam, not in deleted items. It was like I had been surgically removed from the communication chain. I brought it up to Miranda casually. "Hey, I think there might be something wrong with my email. I didn't get the invite for the budget meeting." She looked puzzled, concerned even. "That's so weird. I definitely included you in the distribution list. Let me double-check the settings. Maybe there's a glitch." She promised to look into it. The problem persisted. Then came the project handoff disaster. I had completed preliminary work on a social media campaign for a new client and was supposed to pass it to the creative team. I saved all the files in the designated shared folder, sent an email confirmation, and moved on to my next assignment. A week later, the creative director, Samantha, stormed over to my desk. Her face was red with anger. "Marcus, where are the campaign files? We've been waiting for a week, and the folder is completely empty. The client is asking for updates, and we have nothing to show them." "I put them there," I insisted, my voice rising with frustration. "I saved them on Tuesday. I sent you an email." "There's no email," Samantha snapped, "and there are no files. This is the third time something like this has happened with you. What is going on?" I could feel my reputation crumbling around me. In my performance review that quarter, David used words like unreliable and scattered. He suggested I might be overwhelmed by the responsibilities of my role and recommended I consider whether this position was the right fit for me. I went home that night and sat in my dark apartment for hours. I started questioning myself. Was I losing my mind? Was I really this incompetent? I had never experienced anything like this at my previous jobs. I had glowing references, successful project histories. How had I suddenly become someone who couldn't manage basic file organization? The turning point came on a random Thursday evening. I had forgotten my phone charger at my desk and came back to the office around 8 p.m. to grab it. The cleaning crew was just finishing up, and the office was mostly dark, except for the emergency exit signs casting an eerie green glow across the empty desks. As I walked toward my workstation, I noticed a faint light coming from the corner of the floor. Someone's monitor was on. I crept closer, curious who else would be here this late. It was Miranda. She was sitting at my desk, not hers. My computer was logged in, and she was clicking through my files with practice efficiency. I stood frozen in the shadows, watching as she selected an entire folder, a project I had been working on for a new client pitch, and dragged it to the recycle bin. Then she emptied the recycle bin. She opened my email, searched for something, and deleted several messages. Her movements were quick, confident. This was not her first time. My blood went cold, then hot with rage. Every missed meeting, every lost file, every questioning look from my boss, it all made sense now. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I quietly backed away, retrieved my charger from a coworker's desk instead, and left the building. My hands were shaking as I sat in my car in the parking garage. I needed proof, real, undeniable proof that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. The next morning, I arrived at work early and went straight to IT. I spoke with a technician named Raj, who I had become friendly with over the past few months. I told him everything, including what I had witnessed the night before. Raj's expression shifted from skeptical to serious as I explained the pattern. "We can check the access logs," he said slowly. "Every login, every file modification, it's all tracked. If someone has been accessing your computer with your credentials, we'll see it." 2 days later, Raj called me into his office. His face was grim. "Marcus, you're going to want to see this." The log showed dozens of instances over the past 6 months where my computer had been accessed after hours, sometimes past midnight. File deletions, email modifications, calendar edits, all traced back to logins occurring when I wasn't in the building. And the IP addresses, they matched Miranda's workstation. I felt a mixture of relief and fury. Relief that I wasn't crazy. Fury that someone had deliberately tried to destroy my career. I went to HR immediately, presented the evidence, and filed a formal complaint. The HR director, a stern woman named Patricia, listened to everything, reviewed the logs, and assured me the matter would be investigated thoroughly. Miranda was called into a meeting the following Monday. I wasn't present, but I heard later that when confronted with the evidence, she initially denied everything. Then, when shown the detailed access logs with timestamps and IP addresses, she broke down. She admitted everything. She confessed that she had been sabotaging me since my first month because she believed she deserved my position. She had applied for the senior coordinator role 3 times and been passed over each time. When they hired me, an outsider, she snapped. She thought if she could make me look incompetent, they would fire me and finally give her the promotion she felt entitled to. She had learned my computer password by watching me type it in during my first week. She had been systematically destroying my work, removing me from meetings, and watching my reputation crumble while pretending to be my friend. Miranda was terminated immediately. Not just fired, but escorted out of the building by security within the hour. HR also discovered she had done something similar, though less extensively, to a previous coworker who had left the company a year before I arrived. That former employee had quit, believing she just wasn't cut out for the job. David called me into his office that afternoon. He looked genuinely pained. "Marcus, I owe you an apology," he said. "I should have looked deeper when the problem started. I should have trusted your track record more than the circumstantial evidence." He offered me a raise and a formal letter clearing my record of any performance concerns related to the incidents. It wasn't enough to undo the months of stress, the sleepless nights, the self-doubt that had nearly broken me, but it was something. I stayed at that company for another year before moving on to a better opportunity. But I learned some hard lessons during those dark months. First, document everything. If I had been more paranoid from the start, keeping separate backups, noting every interaction, I might have caught on sooner. Second, trust your instincts.
When things don't add up, there's usually a reason. I spent months blaming myself when the evidence of sabotage was right in front of me. I just didn't want to believe that someone could be that calculated, that cruel. And third, never underestimate the depths of workplace jealousy. Miranda wasn't a monster. She was an ordinary person who let resentment fester into something toxic. She convinced herself that I had stolen something that belonged to her, and she was willing to destroy my career to get it back. Sometimes the most dangerous coworker isn't the one who yells or makes obvious threats. It's the one who smiles at you every morning, brings you coffee, and asks about your weekend, all while quietly deleting your files the moment you turn your back. The professional world can be a battlefield, and sometimes the person standing next to you isn't an ally. They're just waiting for the right moment to strike. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way through. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future stories about workplace nightmares and toxic coworkers. And if you have your own story about professional sabotage or a terrible boss, drop it in the comments or send it to us. Your experience could be featured in our next video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.